Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you, sir?
Okay. I hope you are all fine also.
Yeah, we are also fine.
Okay. Good to know. So we are going to start our lecture today, and I hope that you know the topic of today's discussion. I have already sent you some documents related to today's class, right? So, and I hope that you have gone through some of the documents. So basically, we are going to focus on these first two councils, two Sangiti, Patama Sangiti and Dutiya Sangiti. So the first one that took place 3 months after the Buddha's Parinibbana, right? And the second one took place about 100 years after the Buddha's Parinibbana. So we will be discussing why this Sangiti took place and how these meetings or these councils have been carried out, and then what are the results of these councils and how they are significant in our study of the history of Buddhism in India, or history of Indian Buddhism. But before that, I'd like to ask you if you have any questions with regard to your writing of essays and so on, because it seems like there is a kind of confusion that is going on. I have been receiving different emails and so on, asking for dates or topics or so many different things. So if you have specific questions related to your first essay, especially, you can raise the matters before we start our class. Also, if you have gone through some of the documents, if you would like to share something, you are welcome to share your thoughts. Is it clear now to you? Yeah, so now the topic that you have chosen is for the first essay, right? Yeah, so that means you have to choose another topic for the second essay. Yes. It seems like there is no question, right? Everything is clear. Okay, then we can start our lecture then. So as I have been saying, we will be focusing on these first two councils today. And we'll be spending a separate class on the discussion of third council, because it is quite eventful. And this third council that took place in the time of King Asoka, that in a way represent the revival of Buddhism, because it is in the time of Asoka that Buddhism got spread into different places, and his effort in making Buddhism popular by by creating these inscriptions and establishing so many different temples and pagodas. It is said that he established as many as 84,000 stupas, right? And they all have been consecrated on the same day. So there are so many things that occurred in the time of King Asoka, and he sent missionaries to different directions, not just within India, but outside India. And this one of the important texts in the Abhidhamma Pitaka, this Kathavatu also came to exist in the third council. The entire Pali canon have been fixed in this council. So the text as we have now, especially in the Theravada tradition, in the Pali tradition, is said to have come to exist in the third council. And also we come to know about so many different schools that have been existing in this time, and but some of them only were able to survive later on. So we'll be spending one separate class on this third council later on, but today we'll be focusing on these two councils, the one that took place immediately after the Buddha's parinibbana. What is the reason behind that? And we'll be also investigating if there have been any kind of meetings or gatherings that took place in the time of the Buddha, apart from this first council, right? So, and I have provided these documents to you. You can go through them for further clarification, especially if you are writing your essays on this. You can focus on any of the council, or you can include both the councils in your writing, in your discussion. So when I share a screen, why it becomes like this? What is the reason? Okay, now. Okay. First of all, some general remarks. So yeah, as I have been saying, the first one occurred 3 months after the Buddha's parinibbana, and the second one occurred about 100 years after the Buddha's parinibbana. Dhamma and Vinaya have been collected and accepted as the authentic teachings. So these two terms are very, very important. Recently this year, our professor Kapila has written an essay on this expression of Dhamma and Vinaya. Dhamma and Vinaya and Dhamma Vinaya, as a compound together. So and this has has been published in a felicitation volume in honor of Professor K.L. Dhammajyoti from Hong Kong. So in that he provides some discussions on these two terms, because it seems that there are some confusion that are going on, on these two terms. What does it mean by Dhamma and also Vinaya, and when they are put together as Dhamma Vinaya? Okay, but we come to know that in the first council there was a discussion of this Dhamma and Vinaya, and as we find in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta of the Buddha, which is considered to be the last discourse of the Buddha that you can find in the Digha Nikaya, and it is quite long. In that you would find that in several places the Buddha emphasized on these two terms, Dhamma and Vinaya, especially when there was a discussion of who would be taking care of the sasana, who would be in charge of sasana. The Buddha's dispensation after the Buddha is no more, and the Buddha emphasized on particularly this Dhamma and Vinaya. Yeah, so and then we come to know that Sangha got split into two fractions, basically Sthaviravada and Mahasangika, over 10 controversial rules, and that happened about 100 years after the Buddha's parinibbana. We will be also discussing if there were any attempt of making, separate Sangha or separate school in the time of the Buddha. So one of the question would be, was there any division of Sangha when the Buddha was alive? The other question would be, was there any meeting or council that took place in the time of the Buddha with the purpose of deciding on Buddha's teachings and preservation of the Sasana? And we'll be discussing the case of Devadatta and also the case of Punna in relation to this, division of Sangha and preservation of the teachings. I have also sent you a separate document on these 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas, right? They are also very, very important. They are also very important in the sense that when we talk about collection of teachings and preservation of teachings, and also when we talk about Dhamma and Vinaya, it seems that in the time of the Buddha, these 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas have been regarded as fundamental teachings of the Buddha. Okay, so there are several texts discussing on these 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas. The one that I sent to you is by Lady Seattle, right? Yeah, that is a shorter text. But if you want to have fuller understanding of this 37 Bodhipakya Dhammas, as they have been discussed in the canonical text and also in the commentarial text, you can look at this text by Rupert Gethin, Professor Rupert Gethin. I think the text is called Awakening of the Buddha or something like that. It was his PhD thesis, actually later on published as a book. So in that book he discussed extensively on this 37 Bodhipakya Dhamma. And in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta itself you would find mentioning of this 37 Bodhipakya Dhamma. So these are the primary sources when you talk about these councils. Mahaparinibbana Sutta, I put it earlier because it comes in the canonical text, and then Chulavagga Pali belonging to Vinaya Pitaka, Samanta Pasadika, the commentary to Vinaya Pitaka, and the last two texts, Dipavamsa and Mahavamsa, they are chronicles, okay, earliest chronicles talking about the history of Buddhism in India and also in Sri Lanka. Let us now discuss on the final passing away of the Buddha and the idea of first council. If you look at this Parinibbana Sutta, you would see that Buddha has been moving from Rajagaha until Vesali, and he has been stopping in different places. This seems to be his last year, as a Buddha, as a teacher, giving teaching to everyone until he came to Vesali. And again, I would be mentioning about Buddha's moving from place to place. So there are basically these two ideas. I think I have mentioned it before also, that normally he spent 3 months rainy retreat in a particular place, and then if he feels that there is no need for him to stay in that particular place, then he moves from that place to another place. So until the next rainy season comes, he keeps on moving from place to place. So there is this idea of covering 3 different areas, between the two rainy retreat. Okay, I think better if I probably show this to you clearly. So he seems to cover these three circle, the great circle, the medium circle, and inner circle. Mahamandala, Majjhima Mandala, and Antima Mandala. This should be Antima Mandala. And his journey from place to place is explained in terms of these two different ways. One is called Aturita Charika, the other is called Turita Charika. So Turita Charika refers to his quick journey, while Aturita Charika refers to a slow journey. So when he completes his rainy retreat and he moves on to different places until the next rainy retreat arrive, that is called a slow journey. So in this slow journey, normally he is accompanied by a group of monks, okay, and then he will be moving from place to place, giving teaching to different people. Turita Charika refers to quick journey. That means if you are familiar with the Buddha's practice, that normally in the early morning the Buddha enters into particular type of meditation, and then in that meditation he surveys the world, and he tries to understand if there are people who are struggling with their practice, and who are actually who have been practicing, carrying out the practice for quite some times, but for some reason they are not progressing. But with some assistance from the Buddha or some other disciples, enlightened disciples, they would be able to make progress very quickly, very soon. In that case, the Buddha quickly goes to visit these people, and then he gives them teaching. Okay, and based on that, they make their progress. And you'd find here that, for example, if you look at this description, this great circle is said to consist of an area of 900 yojanas that a Buddha covers in a 9-month journey. So this journey is consists of nine months. Okay, he starts the journey immediately after completing the great invitation at the end of a rainy retreat. So this great invitation refers to Pavarana. Okay, as soon as Pavarana is complete, he moves to another place. The medium circle consists of an area of 600 yojanas, and a Buddha covers it with an 8-month journey. In this case, he does not begin his journey immediately after the 3 months rain retreat. This is because, as described by the commentator, he spends 1 more month after the usual rain retreat to guide monks whose practice of calm and insight, that is samatha and vipassana, is still tender and requires further instructions. So in that case, he stays back in the same place and spent 1 more month. The inner circle consists of an area of 300 yojanas, and a Buddha spends very time periods to cover his journey to this area. As it is described in the commentary, a Buddha stays back to guide monks whose faculties are immature, aparipakindriya, and are not able to achieve their spiritual goals within the 4 months' time. So according to their need, the Buddha spends 5, 6, 7, or 8 months in the same place for their benefit. Accordingly, this journey may take 7, 6, 5, or 4 months time to complete. So this is how he moves from place to place. Now in this case, we find that this was the Buddha's last journey, and he has been covering many places, and it seems like he's aware that this is going to be his last year. So I would ask you to go through this Mahaparinibbana Sutta whenever you have time. So every place he stops, he asks Ananda to spread the news to different directions, so that the people his followers, his disciples or lay followers, they have been staying in that particular area together in one place, and then the Buddha would give them teaching. So it has been going on, it has been happening until he arrived in Vesali. So when he came to Vesali with this long journey, he got sick there and understood that the time for his final passing is close. Ananda was a constant companion. Buddha thought of giving his final teaching. As it is recorded in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, after a long travel, the Buddha gets ill and tired. Later, when he slightly recovers from the illness, Ananda approaches him and expresses his happiness, saying that he is certain that the Buddha would not enter into Parinibbana without delivering a final teaching to the communities. So when the Buddha was ill, Ananda was upset because of that. But when the Buddha recovered slightly, Ananda was very, very happy, and he expressed his ideas, saying to the Buddha that, I know that Buddha is not going to leave us soon, before providing his final teaching. But then the Buddha replied to Ananda saying that, what do you mean by final teaching? So I do not have any, final teaching. What I have been teaching from the beginning is, is the teaching that I will repeat again and again. So that is the teaching. So the Buddha said, what more does the community of bhikkhus expect from me, Ananda? I have set forth the Dhamma without making any distinction of esoteric and exoteric doctrine. There is nothing, Ananda, with regard to the teachings that the Tathagata holds to the last with the closed fist of a teacher who keeps some things back. Whosoever may think that it is he who should lead the community of bhikkhus, or that the community depends upon him, it is such a one that would have to give last instructions respecting them. But Ananda, the Tathagata, has no such idea as that it is he who should lead the community of bhikkhus, or that the community depends upon him. So what instructions should he have to give respecting the community of bhikkhus? So if you look at this response, from the Buddha, it shows several things. One is that he did not consider himself as a supreme leader in the community, and I think this is very much true in regard to his teaching of paticca samuppada and also soullessness, anatta, right? So once you achieve the goal, the supreme goal, as it is described in Buddhism, you lose this identity of self, right? Therefore, there should not be any idea of leading the Sangha. And that is what we can see when he was stressing on Dhamma and Vinaya to be regarded as teacher after he is gone. So he's not giving any authority to any particular person. So fundamentally, Dhamma refers to the truth, whereas Vinaya refers to the disciplinary rules, right? And he is also saying that I should not have, any last word or final word to say to the community, because I have been already teaching this Dhamma and Vinaya for all these years to the communities, and I do not have this closed fist of a teacher. So whatever that should be spoken, that should be said for the benefit of many, for the benefit of the world, I have been saying it to the communities. Further, the Buddha said, Ananda, I am now old, worn out, I reached the term of my life, which is 80. Just as an old cart is made to go by being held together with straps, so the Tathagata's body is kept going by being strapped up. Therefore, Ananda, you should live as your own islands, being your own refuge, with no one else as your refuge, with the Dhamma as an island, with the Dhamma as your refuge, with no other refuge. So this can be taken as a kind of teaching, especially to Ananda and to everyone else. So the Buddha here is saying that he's old and he's tired now. So his students should not depend on him, should not expect that they can anytime come to meet the Buddha and get his instruction now. Instead, the Buddha is saying that you become your own island, you become your own refuge, your own teacher, you guide yourself and take Dhamma as your own island, take Dhamma as your refuge, as your guidance. So this is the statement in Pali, Tasmatiha Ananda Attadipa Viharata Attasarana Anaya Sarana Dhamma Dipa Viharata Dhamma Sarana Anaya Sarana. And how should one dwell being one's own island? I mean, in relation to this statement, he talks about these 4 foundations of mindfulness. Katancha Ananda Bhikkhu Attadipo Viharati Attasarano Anaya Sarano Dhamma Dipo Dhamma Sarano Anaya Sarano Idananda Bhikkhu Kaye Kayanupassi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijjado Manasan Vedanasu Vedananu Passi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijjado Manasam Chitte Chittanu Passi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijjado Manasam Dhammesu Dhammanu Passi Viharati Atapi Sampajano Satima Vinaya Loke Abhijjado Manasam. And these 4 foundations of mindfulness come in the list of 37 factors of enlightenment, right? They are present in the discussion of 37 Bodhipakya Dhamma. And this is how he said, you can be your own island. Thereafter, the Buddha asked Ananda to call all the monastics and followers to gather in one place as he wishes to address them for the last time. Okay, so taking this occasion, this question by Ananda, the Buddha has been probably thinking that he has to say something to his followers and both monastic and lay followers, and for the last time. So he asked Ananda to call everyone and gather in one place, and probably he wants to take this occasion to announce his final passing away. So all the monks and everyone gathered around the Buddha. Thereupon the Blessed One entered the hall of audience, and taking the seat prepared for him, he exhorted the bhikkhus, saying, "Now, O bhikkhus, I say to you that these teachings of which I have direct knowledge and which I have made known to you, these you should thoroughly learn, cultivate, develop, and frequently practice, that the life of purity may be established and may long endure, for the welfare and happiness of the multitude, out of compassion for the world, for the benefit, well-being, and happiness of gods and men. Katame chate bhikkave dhamma maya abhinya desita ye vo sadhukang uggahetva asevitabba bhavetabba bahulikattabba yataidang brahmacharyang adhaniyang assa chiratitikang tadassa bahujana hitaya bahujana sukaya lokanukampaya attaya hitaya sukaya deva manussanam. So here the Buddha is saying that the teaching that he himself had direct knowledge, that he himself had realized. He made them known to everyone so that they can learn, cultivate, develop, and frequently practice. And this is for the preservation of sasana and also for the good of many. But what are those? Then he said, Sayyatidam, Sattaro Satipatthana, Sattaro Samma Padana, Chattaro Iddipada, Panchendriyani, Panchavalani, Sattabhujjanga, Ariyo Attangiku Magga. So he then said these 37 factors of enlightenment, right? Immediately after that, the Buddha announced the time of his final Nibbana. So after that, the Buddha says that from now, after 3 months, after spending this rainy retreat, I will enter into Parinibbana. The Buddha said, Bandha idani bhikkhave amantayame vo vayadamma sankara appamadena sampadeta nachirang tathagatassa parinibbanang bhavisati ito tinnang masanang achayena tathagato parinibbayisati. And now, monks, I declare to you, all conditioned things are of a nature to decay. Strive on untiringly. The Tathagata's final passing will not be long delayed. 3 months from now, the Tathagata will take his final Nibbana. So that was the announcement he made. And he stressed that all conditioned things are impermanent, right? In other words, sabbe sankara anicca. It is expressed differently. Vayadamma sankara appamadena sampadeta. Strive on untiringly. Make effort in your practice. Further, the Buddha said, it may be Ananda that some of you may think in this way, first is the teacher's word. There is now no teacher for us. But it should not be seen like that, Ananda. Whatever doctrine and discipline has been taught by me or laid down, Ananda, that is your teacher after my passing away. Yoko Ananda Maya Dhammo cha Vinayo cha Desito Panyato Sovo Mamachayena Sattati. Consider the Dhamma and discipline that I have been teaching to be your teacher, right? Further, the Buddha said, desiring to do so, Ananda, the community after my passing away can abolish the minor and subsidiary training rules. The Buddha told Ananda that after my passing away, if the Sangha wants to change some of the Vinaya rules, they will be able to do so. They are permitted to do so, especially Kuddhanukuddha Sikka, right? Minor rules. And then the Buddha was talking about Channa, one of the monks. Buddha said to Ananda that the highest penalty after my passing away is to be handed out to the monk Channa. So he has been asking Ananda to approach the Sangha to give Channa this punishment. It is regarded as the highest punishment in the Sasana. It is called Brahmadanda, that is keeping somebody away from the Sasana. But then Ananda asked the Buddha, what is the highest penalty, Reverend Sir? The monk Channa Ananda may say whatever he wishes, but he is not to be spoken to or advised or instructed by the monks. And we find in the account of the first council that as soon as the council is completed, Ananda went to meet Channa to convey the message of the Buddha. As time came, Buddha passed away peacefully. Those that were not yet liberated wept and cried, but those liberated ones did not weep. Anuruddha, as a senior monk, consoled everyone with a Dhamma discussion with Ananda the whole night. Mahakassapa, with a multitude of monks traveling from Pava to Kusinara, met a certain Ajivakas on the way and came to know Buddha's passing away in a week ago. And as above, hearing this, the non-liberated ones wept and cried. not the liberated ones. So in this place, Kusinara, where the Buddha passed away, Anuruddha was one of the senior monks, and Ananda, of course, and there were a lot of monks there. But as it is expressed here, those followers, those disciples who are not liberated yet, they have been, crying because the Buddha is no more now. Those liberated ones, they have been engaged in their practice, reflecting on the nature of things. And Anuruddha and Ananda have been providing Dhamma talks to console all these people. Mahakassapa, who is responsible for this first council, who was presiding in the first council, he was in fact responsible especially for calling for the council. It is particularly him who decided to hold a meeting after the Buddha's passing away. He was not there at that time. He was coming from Pava to Kusinara. On the way, he met a follower of Ajivaka, a different school, and this Ajivaka already knew that because he was crossing this Kusinara, so he knew that Buddha passed away. And then when he met Mahakassapa, he told him that, do you know that the Buddha passed away? Mahakassapa was surprised. Then he said that it has been 1 week now. And then hearing that, the monks around Mahakassapa, some of the monks who are not liberated, they have been crying. And again, this in the same way, the other monks who are liberated ones, they were just reflecting on the nature of things. And then in that group of monks, there was a monk called Subhadda, right? And he's quite famous for his statement, because he said that it is good that Buddha passed away. Now there is no one to tell us, do this or do that. So he was happy. So he said, Alang avusu ma sucitta ma paridevita sumutta mayang tena mahasamanena upaduta chapoma idango kappati idango na kappati iti idani pana mayang yang ichisama tang karisama yang na ichisama na tang karisamati. So he was asking his friends that, monks, do not lament, do not grieve. We are now well released from this great samana. Otherwise, he would always tell us, practice this, don't do this. Now, whatever we wish, we can do. So, hearing that, Mahakassapa was not very happy.
Hello, teacher.
Yes.
What's the name of the monk who said like that?
Subhadda. His name is Subhadda.
Okay. Thank you.
Why this sound is so small? What is the reason? Yeah. So you asked for the name of this monk, right?
Yes, Bante. Subhadda, right?
Yeah, Subhadda. His name is Subhadda. Okay.
So was he chastised for talking like that? I mean, that seems to be a very bad thing to say
Yeah.
directly after the death of the Buddha.
Right. So he was, scolded, and so the monks have been saying that you should not say like that. So, and of course, as we can understand, it is because of his, he was a Putujana monk, and because of his not properly understanding the teaching that he uttered this statement. Probably later on, he understood his mistake. And not just him, we find that there have been other monks, other followers who did not like the Buddha very much because he was probably a bit strict, with the practice.
Bante, can I ask something? Taking advantage of this pause.
Yes.
About the previous disciple that you mentioned about Chana, that he was to be punished by, like, regarding something that he did, but he was to be punished not to be spoken so, by other monks, but that is caught my attention. I thought that maybe the biggest punish will be, okay, go outside or do this or do that, but not talking about the Dhamma. That is something that found
Yeah.
it so striking.
True. Right. Yes. So Channa, right?
Related question, teacher. Why was he punished? Why Channa was punished?
Yeah. Good question. Yeah, we should know why he was given this particular penalty. So Channa, right? Channa was the one who was a constant companion of Siddhartha, right? He was a when the Buddha was a prince, he has been taking the Buddha to different places, and in fact, when the Buddha renounced, it is him who took him out. So Channa later on joined the order, and as he was a close friend of Siddhartha, so it says that he was very, very proud of that. He joined the order later on. So, and he was, I think, quite old at that time. But it says that he was so proud that because he knew the Buddha personally, he would not follow any of the rules or anything, and he would not respect the senior monks. Rather he would say that all the other monks who are senior, who joined before him, but probably younger in terms of age, should come and pay respect to him. In fact, listen to him. So, and Buddha scolded him several times for that, but he did not change. So later on, Buddha decided that he should be given this penalty of Brahmadanda, that is keeping him alone. So he may say whatever he like to say, but no one should respond to him, right? So in fact, we find in the discussion that in the record, that when Ananda approached him with the message of the Buddha that Buddha is no more now, and he conveyed this message to you because of your misbehavior and so on. Hearing that, Channa fainted on that spot. He could not take it. But later on, when he regained consciousness, it says that he was very serious in his practice, and very soon he completed his spiritual journey. He reached the goal. Yes. Okay. So this, now we are talking about Subhadda, right? So Subhadda was telling his friends that no need to worry that Buddha passed away. Now we can live our life as we wish to live. But then Mahakassapa, hearing that, he says that Avuso Dhammancha Vinayancha Sangayama. We should recite the Dhamma and Vinaya. Pure Adhammo Dippati Dhammo patibahiyati, pure abhinayo dippati, vinayo patibahiyati, pure Adhammavadino balavanto hunti, Dhammavadino dubbala hunti, pure avinayavadino balavanto hunti, vinayavadino dubbala hunti. So this is Mahakassapa's thought. He was saying that we should gather together and recite the Dhamma and Vinaya as taught by the Buddha before what is not Dhamma, okay, before non-Dhamma shines, before Dhamma becomes weak, before non-Vinaya, okay, indiscipline becomes prominent, and Vinaya becomes weak. And before Adhammavadino, those upholders of not Dhamma, those who are not following the Dhamma, before they become powerful, strong, before those people who are not following Vinaya, indisciplined people, before they become strong, we need to gather together and decide this Dhamma and Vinaya. So that was his thought. Then he says, Sammatani Sangena Imani Pancha Bhikkhu Satani Rajagahe Vasantani Dhammancha Vinayancha Sangayitum Na Anyehi Bhikkhu Rajagahe Vasang Vasitabante. This was a clear statement from him again. When they were deciding a place, they decided Rajagaha to be the place to have this meeting, this council. And he's saying that 500 monks should be present, Pancha Bhikkhu Satani, and in the Rajagaha, only these 500 monks would be taking the rains retreat. Other monks or other disciples should live in other places, in the neighboring places, but not in this particular place. Okay, so they wanted to be separated from all the other monks and all the other kind of influences, I guess, but only these 500 monks who would be dwelling in this particular place to recite the Dhamma and Vinaya. Selection of Ananda. So as you know, Ananda has been helping the Buddha. He was a chief attendant of the Buddha for 25 years until the Buddha's final passing away. But he was not an Arahant, so he has been doing everything, but he was not able to really carry out his practice. In fact, Mahakassapa, who was considered to be one of the most senior monks and one of the monks who has been really very, very serious in the practice, especially in the Dhutanga practice, in the practice of austerities. So it seems that he scolded Ananda several times because Ananda was busy maintaining the monasteries, taking care of the Buddha and everything. So he was not able to complete his practice. Okay, so whenever Mahakassapa met him, he scolded Ananda that why don't you carry out your practice? That is also important. So now it is more important at this point because if you look at the life of Ananda, you would find that, as we know, Ananda has been with the Buddha for a very long period of time. And in fact, when he became the chief attendant, he told the Buddha that, whenever he cannot accompany the Buddha to a certain place where the Buddha goes to give Dhamma, the teaching, he requested the Buddha that after coming back from the occasion, he should, repeat the same teaching to him, right? So that he can remember it. So Ananda had this, extraordinary quality of remembering the teaching. He had a very good memory. So the Buddha agreed to that. Okay, so he says that the Buddha, after coming back, would repeat the same teaching to him so that he can remember it. So at this point, he was very, very important, because he was the one who had heard much, Bahusutta. So he was the one who heard much from the Buddha. Okay, and he remembered all these teachings, and he should be invited in the council. But the idea is that if one is not an Arahant, one should not participate the council, right? So how Ananda was selected? And as we know, Mahakassapa was the chief monk in the community. So he would not easily allow Ananda to participate in the council. There are other monks who in fact requested Mahakassapa that we should include Ananda. So they said, "Honored sir, this Ananda, although he is still a learner, could not be one to follow a wrong course through desire, anger, delusion, fear. And he has mastered much Dhamma and discipline under the Lord. Well, now, honored sir, let the elders select the Venerable Ananda as well." Then the Venerable Kassapa, the Great, selected the Venerable Ananda as well. Okay, so all the other monks are saying that even though he is a learner, he is not yet completed his brahmacharya life, as long as this attainment of arahantship is concerned, but he is not someone who has committed any mistake out of desire, anger, delusion, and fear. Okay, he has been serving the sasana for very long time sincerely, and he knows much Dhamma and discipline. He heard much Dhamma and discipline from the Buddha, and we should include him in the community. So Mahakassapa agreed to that. And then when it was conveyed to Ananda, when this message was conveyed to Ananda thinking tomorrow is the assembly. So he has been informed before, so he has been carrying out his practice. But even before the conference, the council began, the meeting began, he was not yet enlightened. Okay, so he was thinking that tomorrow is the assembly. Now it is not suitable in me that I, being only a learner, should go to the assembly. And having passed much of that night in mindfulness as to body, when the night was nearly spent thinking, I will lie down, he inclined his body, but before his head had touched the mattress, and while his feet were free from the ground, in that interval, his mind was freed from the cankers with no residuum for rebirth remaining. Then the Venerable Ananda, being a perfected one, went to the assembly. So it is just before the meeting started, in the night before the meeting started, he attained arahantship. So this description shows that he has been very seriously, carrying out his practice, and he was really, really exhausted. And at the time when he wanted to take some rest, he attained arahantship. So this was a unique position. Normally, when we talk about the practice of samadhi or bhavana in Buddhism, there are 4 postures that are discussed, right? Sitting, standing, walking, and lying down, right? These are the 4 postures that are mentioned in which you can carry out your practice. But in the case of Ananda, he was neither lying down nor standing, right? He was about to lie down, and on that moment, he attained arahantship. Okay, now they organized this first council, under with the support of King Ajatasattu in Rajagaha, on the process of questioning and answering how this council, this meeting took place. One of the important figure was Ananda, the other was Upali, right? We discussed a bit about Upali earlier. He was someone who was an expert in the Vinaya, in the disciplinary section. So Mahakassapa, being the president of the council, asked questions related to Vinaya to Upali, and questions with regard to Dhamma to Ananda. So when Mahakassapa asked Upali, you would see that in the procedure, questions were put forth in this way: Patamang avusu Upali, Parajikang katta panyatante. So he's asking about Parajika first, and he's asking, what is this Parajika? And can you tell us about it? Where is it proclaimed? Where is it given? Vesali yang bhante. So it was given in Vesali. Kang Arabati. What is the reason? To whom it was given? Sudinnang Kalanda Puttang Arabati. So it was connected to someone called Sudinna. Kisming Vatusminti Metuna Dhammeti. With regard to what? It was with regard to Metuna Dhamma. Okay, that is with regard to sexual practice. Okay. Ataku ayasma Mahakassapa ayasmantang Upali Atamasa Parajikasa Vattum Pipuchi Nidanam Pipuchi Pugalam Pipuchi Panyatim Pipuchi Anupanyatim Pipuchi Apattim Pipuchi Anapattim Pipuchi. So with regard to this particular principle, particular Parajika, Mahakassapa asked Upali about everything. Okay, who it is given at first, why it was given, what was the occasion, who was the person, right? And then what is the problem of practicing this, what is the punishment, and what is the benefit of not practicing this. Dutiyang panavasu Upali Parajikang katta panyatante. Then he moved on to ask about second Parajika and third Parajika. Etenava, in this way, Etenava upayana ubato vibange pucci. So according to this record of first council, says that Mahakassapa asked Upali about ubato vibanga. Now ubato vibanga here refers to disciplinary rules for monks, disciplinary rules for nuns as well. Okay, puttu ayasma Upali visajjesi. So when he was asked, as he was asked, every single question, he replied accordingly. He answered accordingly. After that, Atako ayasma Mahakassapo ayasmantang Anandang etadavocha. When the discussion of Vinaya is completed, Mahakassapa then asked questions with regard to Dhamma to Ananda. Brahmajala Ngavasu Ananda Kattabhasitanti. Where this sutta, Brahmajala Sutta, was given. He was asking Ananda. Antaracha Bante Rajagahang Antaracha Nalandang Rajagarake Ambalattikayati. So it says it was given in a place called Ambalattika, which is in between Rajagaha and Nalanda. Kang Arabati, to whom it was given, Supiyancha Paribhajakang Brahmadattancha Manavanti. So it was given to someone called, Brahmadatta. He was an ascetic. He was a Paribhajaka. Atako ayasma Mahakassapo ayasmantang Anandang Brahmajalasa Nidanam Pipucci Pugalam Pipucci. So in the same way, Mahakassapa asked about the discourse, to whom it was given, what was the place. I think that is why we find in the sutta this setting, this beginning talk or background that is provided in the sutta with the expression evang me sutta. And then there was a discussion of Samanya Pala Sutta and so on. Eteneva upayena, in this particular way, Panchapi Nikaye Pucci, Puttu Puttu Ayasmananda Visarjesi. So when talking about the discussion of Dhamma, according to this description, it says that this 5 Nikaya has been recited, right? Panchapi Nikaye Pucci. With regard to this 5 Nikaya, that is Diga Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Sanyutta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, and Kuddaka Nikaya. Any questions so far? There was still no idea of Pitaka in the first council, just Dhamma and Vinaya.
But teacher, there seems to have been already established during the lifetime of the Buddha a tradition of reciting the suttas.
Right, true.
So what do we really know about that tradition? I mean, was there a certain I don't know, way to recite, or were they reciting all the Dhamma and all the sutta? I mean, how did that tradition start?
Yeah, the tradition of recitation, it is connected to teaching, this Dhamma, or having the Dhamma discussion or recitation of Vinaya principles, and at the Upasata ceremony, and also preserving and transmitting the teaching. What was your question?
Like, how was that established, that tradition, and what do we
Yeah.
know about it, basically?
Yeah, okay, I'll talk about it. Yeah. Yeah. So that is your question. Okay, so first of all, in the first council, we come to know that there was a discussion of this Dhamma and Vinaya, right? And specifically, Dhamma refers to Pancha Nikaya, and Vinaya refers to Ubato Vibhanga. Okay, right? So these two expressions we come to know. And whether Abhidhamma has been discussed, I don't think even the term Abhidhamma was mentioned, in the early discourses, the recitation of which took place in the time of the Buddha or later. We come to know about it later that, Buddha taught Abhidhamma in some heaven, and then later on he transmitted the gist of Abhidhamma to Sariputta, and Sariputta later on taught his disciples. That is how Abhidhamma tradition continued, right? That is what we come to know in the traditional account. And when you talk about Abhidhamma as a separate text or separate collection, I don't think it was recited at the beginning. But of course, when you look at the explanation, the teachings in the Abhidhamma, you would find that Abhidhamma teachings are based on the teachings in the suttas, right? So especially when you talk about the listing of things, metrics or matika. So listing of things you can find in the Sangiti Sutta, Dasuttara Sutta, in the Anguttara Nikaya, some of the suttas, some of the teachings, right? But not exactly, you cannot really find a full list. Okay, so that is how probably some of the things are, preserved and recited. You can say that, in the council. So that is with regard to your question. And with regard to this question by Sami, the recitation of the text of the Dhamma and Vinaya in the time of the Buddha. Now, when we talk about especially the transmission and preservation of teachings, there are different theories. I think as long as some of the Vinaya text or Vinaya principles are concerned, we can say that they have been, fixed, in the time of the Buddha, and they have been really, recited in different upasatas. Okay, that was one of the argument made by some of the scholars, that when monks have been gathering together and having this recitation of their disciplinary rules in the upasata ceremony, they should memorize them. They should keep them in mind. Otherwise, there cannot be communal recitation, right? But as far as the teachings of Dhamma is concerned, there are differences of opinions. There are some who think that the teaching of the Dhamma probably were not recited. They have been discussed, but this set of, how do you say, the listing of important, doctrinal terms and expressions that were fixed. For example, 4 Noble Truths or Noble Eightfold Path, 4 Satipatthana, or as I have just discussed, 37 Factors of Enlightenment. So these lists were fixed, and around this list, the Buddha and also his disciples were providing teaching. Okay, and we find that in some suttas, some of these suttas that were given by Buddha's disciples, some of them are given by bhikkhus, some of them are by bhikkhunis. The Buddha, appreciated their teachings, confirmed their teachings, that if I was giving the teaching, I would be giving in the same way. I would be talking about the same things. So we find a kind of improvisation, improvising in their teaching, and probably that is how they have been transmitted until they were fixed. Okay, I guess by the time of third council, this text were fixed completely.
Oh, I see. Thank you, teacher.
Yeah.
Bhante,
Yes.
you have taken the sources from Samantapasadika?
Sorry.
You have taken these sources from Samantapasadika or Mahamangse?
Basically, this discussion is from Mahaparinibbana Sutta, and some of the information from Samantapasadika as well. But Samantapasadika came later on, right?
Yes.
Normally, commentaries are considered to be later development. What I was saying is not just the commentarial tradition, but okay, probably when I have the occasion, when discussing about, collection of text, the canonical and commentarial text, I would be probably discussing these theories on the preservation and transmission of teachings. Okay, so these theories are given by modern scholars.
Yeah, if this is from Mahaparinibbana Sutta, then we can also say that this is also from latest, because when they are doing the Sangha, there was no divisions like Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya, like that. First, they discuss, and the end of the Sangha, they divided the sutta, long, middle, like that.
Yeah.
So that here you said that etena upayana, like this way, the 5 Nikayas have been discussed.
Yeah.
So you know that, and Kuddaka Nikaya also have several books. Some books are latest.
Right. True.
At that time, there are no books separately, like.
Right. Yeah. That is why I'm saying that the whole Tipitaka was not, fixed until the third council.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So we have to begin with Dhamma and Vinaya first. And as I said, Dhamma refers to this Panchanikaya, but as this student pointed out, even the Kuddaka Nikaya was not complete. That is true. Some of the texts have been included later on.
So
Now,
here he's saying 5 Nikayas have been discussed. So 5 Nikayas mean not this time, 5 Nikayas, at that time. I mean,
right?
now we say 5 Nikayas. There are several books also included, latest books. At that time, 5 Nikayas, the latest books was not included.
Sorry, I did not get your point.
I mean, Reverend sir, the previous slide, can you show me? Here. Eteneva upayena panchapi nikaya pucci.
Hmm.
In this way, the 5 Nikayas was discussed.
Yeah.
So at that time, 5 Nikayas mean Diganika, Majjhima Sangha, Anguttara Nikaya, Kuddaka Nikaya. So, but the Kuddaka Nikaya at that time doesn't hold the 16 book, I think. 16, I think, 15 or 16.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So
I'm
there are
telling, yeah.
yeah. So there are differences of opinions with regard to Kuddaka Nikaya. That is true, especially with regard to the number of texts. That is true.
Yes.
Even now in the Burmese tradition, I think they count 18 texts, right? Yeah, including this Milinda Paiha, Patakopadesa, and Netipakarana, right? Whereas in the Sri Lankan tradition, these 3 texts are still not included, right? They are excluded from the Kuddaka Nikaya.
So I'm just saying that the Kuddaka Nikaya means at that time, not a collection of these books.
Yeah. Yes, but we will come to discuss about it later on. At this moment, I can say that this is just one of the presentation of the Dhammas in terms of 5 collections, 5 Nikayas. Otherwise, we come to know that the teachings of the Buddha have been classified and presented in terms of Navanga Sattu Sasana, if you
Yes.
remember, right? In
So
that, Kuddaka
according to,
Nikaya is not there.
yeah,
Nikayas are not
according
there.
to the Samanta Pasadika, we can say that the 5, because Samanta Pasadika was the latest work, so that time all the books are included.
Yeah. So, so that is regarded as early classification of Buddha's teaching, the 9 categories, where you have Sutta, Gaya, Vyakarana, Udana as separate text or separate teaching, Itivuttaka, right? So 9 different ways in terms of verses, in terms of prose, poetry, right? Yes, so we will come to Samanta Pasadika later on, because Buddha Gosa presents the teaching in different categories, So he says, for example, that the entire teaching can be taken just one type, Ekarasa, Rasavasena Ekavidam, right? In terms of its taste. So as long as the teaching leads to Vimukti, liberation, that is considered to be the teaching of the Buddha. So in that way, you do not have many divisions or classification. It is just one teaching, right? But in terms of Dhamma and Vinaya, it could be regarded as 2 types, right? Dhamma Vinaya Vasana Dvividam, right? In terms of Tipitaka, Pitakas, it could be understood as 3 types. In terms of Nikaya, it could be understood as 5 types, right? So that is how he provides different classifications. Yes, so now we are discussing about this, okay. And this is something very important to discuss when talking about the first council. If you remember, when Ananda approached the Buddha in their last discussion, the Buddha told Ananda that if Sangha desires, they can change, or they can abolish these lesser rules, right? Kuddhanukuddha Sikka. So in the council, there was a discussion of these lesser rules. Mahakassapa asked Ananda if he asked the Buddha what are the minor rules that the Buddha was referring to. Then Ananda said that I did not really ask the Buddha what kind of minor rules the Buddha was referring to. Then there was no one sure about these minor rules. So different monks, different theras have been proposing different rules to be considered as minor rules. So here, for example, if you look at this passage, Uchi pana tuang avasu ananda bhagavantan katamani pana bhante kuddanu kuddakani sikka padani iti. Naku ahang bhante bhagavantan puching. So Mahakassapa is asking Ananda, did you ask Ananda to the Buddha that what kind of kuddanu kudda rules, what kind of minor rules he was referring to that Sangha can change later on. Then a certain thera, ekache thera eva mahamsa. A certain thera said that chattari parajikani tapetwa avasasani. Probably, except these 4 parajikas, the remaining disciplinary rules can be considered as minor rules. Then certain other thera is saying chattari parajikani tapetwa, terasa sangha disese tapetwa, dve aniyate tapetwa, tingsa nisagye pachitye tapetwa, dve navati pachitye tapetwa, chattaro patidesaniye tapetwa, avasesani, kuddakani sikkapadanti. So some monks are saying that yes, 4 parajikas plus 13 sangha disesa rules. Apart from that, the remainings are minor rules. And some are saying that 4 parajikas, 13 sangha disesa, and 2 aniyata, this can be regarded as important rules. The others could be minor rules. In this way, there are differences of opinions. Okay. Finally, what was the decision made by Mahakassapa? Mahakassapa said that, we cannot really decide what are the minor rules. What is the reason? Because then there would be some other monks or laity, they would be saying that, when the Buddha was alive, the disciple of the Buddha have been following these rules strictly, right? There was no controversy, no arguments about that. But as soon as Buddha passed away, they have been changing the rules. Therefore, Mahakassapa said that we do not have to change any rules. As they are given, we should keep them as it is, and we will be following them as they are given. So that is how the disciplinary rules have been fixed. There was no change. And I heard in the modern time also, some years back, there was a discussion of these disciplinary rules among the sanghas of different Theravada countries. So I think there was a discussion among these great theras of Myanmar, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and in these places. Again, they came to the same conclusion that we do not have the authority to change. We should keep them as they are. Okay, now in
Sir,
summary,
excuse me, sir.
yes.
They are not the Adhikarana Samate 7.
Yeah, there are 7 Adhikarana Samata. They are not exactly disciplinary rules, right?
Okay.
Yeah, they are not exactly disciplinary rules. They are considered as some rules to solve a certain dispute only, right?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. So now what we can see from the discussion of First Council is that hearing Subhadda's words, ill utterance, you can say, Mahakassapa decided to hold a council to systematize the Dhamma and Vinaya before the Adhamma and Avinaya become strong. 500 less 1 Arahants were selected. So 499, but later on Ananda was included because of the request made by certain monks. And then he also joined the council. Rajagaha was selected to be the place to have the council. Only the 500 Arahants spent the Vasa there. And then Mahakassapa asked about Vinaya to Upali and about Dhamma to Ananda, right? So before we have the break, I have these critical remarks to make, and probably in the break time you can think about this. Calling for a Sangiti only based on an ill utterance by an insignificant bhikkhu seems doubtful. Furthermore, from the dictionary of Pali proper name, we learn that it is due to a personal enmity Subhadra uttered such words. And in fact, we find similar cases even during the Buddha's lifetime. For example, Devadatta and Sunakata, two examples. In this case, who have been saying, defaming the Buddha. In the case of Devadatta, he even wanted to kill the Buddha, right? But then, when these monks have been defaming the Buddha, especially Sunakata, there was no, making effort of holding for a Sangiti or council. Then the question is, do you think that this, because of just this statement by Subhadra, that the council was held? What could be some other reason? Okay, so that is a question, and you can think about it. And the other is that whether there was similar kind of meetings or gatherings in the time of the Buddha, especially to decide on the teachings of the Buddha. So with that note, we can probably end our first half of the lecture here, and we can have a break. After the break, we can continue our discussion. Okay, let's have a break.
Thank you, teacher.
You're welcome. Okay, let us begin our lecture again. So, yeah, we have been talking about this the reasoning behind holding this council, right? And we are discussing if it was held just based on the utterance, ill utterance of this monk called Subhadra. But there could be some other reason. And we have been also discussing if there were any other effort made during the lifetime of the Buddha, to preserve his teaching and so on, right? Does anyone have any opinion, any remark to make?
Reverend sir,
Yes.
I would like to add two incidents that happened during the Buddha's period. Those are basically connected to the Sangha Veda, but we can connect to hold the assemble Sangha. The first one was Devadatta's 5 demands. Once the Devadatta went to Buddha and request the 5 demands to establish the Sangha,
Right,
first one is prohibited to the eating meats and only using the palm circular rope, the 5 things.
Yeah.
And the other one was the incident in Kosambi during the Buddha's time. Savakas had a complete regarding the Vinaya and Dhamma rules, that. Then Buddha said them to stop the complete, but they never listened. Then Buddha left the temple for the forest. The other incident. I think those incidents also connected for this assembly, I think.
Yeah.
Basically, they are connected to the Sangha Veda, but we can say,
Yeah, interesting remark. So, yes, Devadatta wanted to be a leader of the Sangha, right? So that was his intention. He wanted to lead the Sangha after the Buddha's passing away, but Buddha knew his intention and he did not agree to that. In fact, Devadatta how to make it big? Okay. So Devadatta, in fact, asked the Buddha that he, as this Venerable mentioned, he asked the Buddha to provide a certain specific rules for the for the Sangha. For example, the monks should always live in the forest. They should be completely vegetarian and so on. This kind of rules. The Buddha did not agree to that. Buddha said that I focus on their practice and their intention first, and whatever that should be offered to them, they should have the offered food and so on. So Buddha did not really agree to Devadatta's demand, and later on we know that Devadatta made friendship with Ajatasattu, King Ajatasattu, right? And at that time Bimbisara was alive, but because of the influence of Devadatta, later on Ajatasattu, killed his father and became a king. In the same way, Devadatta wanted to become the leader of the Sangha, but he failed. Only later he understood his fault and he wanted to meet the Buddha and ask for forgiveness, right? And then the Buddha told that in one lifetime, Devadatta will be a Pacheka Buddha or something, right? Yes, that was one incident where Devadatta wanted to become a leader. And then another occasion is about the disagreement among certain monks. And even it says that even the Buddha was not able to solve the problem because they were not really listening to the Buddha. So later on, as a kind of, how do you say, method of sorting out this dispute, the Buddha went into forest. Buddha said that I'm not going to dwell here with this kind of monks. So he went into forest, and other monks and other devotees, followers were not happy that Buddha left everyone and he went into forest. So they were blaming these monks, and later on these monks also came to realize their faults, and later on I think they became good monks, good practitioners. But so that means there have been happening some certain incidents in the time of the Buddha, but that did not lead to the organization of meetings and discussing the Dhammas. Okay. Sunakatta's case was a little different. It is more like Subhadda's case. Who is this Subhadda? So as we have been discussing, Subhadda made this utterance, if you remember, probably because of his personal enmity with the Buddha. It seems like Buddha and Subhadda met earlier and they had a certain disagreement on certain occasion. Subhadda was a lady at that time. I think Subhadda wanted to provide some food to the Buddha. For some reason, he did not take it, and Subhadda was upset. Later on, so it seems that.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Wasn't Subhadda like before he was a Brahmana and he was trying to chop the Buddha's head off with an axe?
I think not that Subhadda. There are different, so many Subhaddas. This is a different one. So yeah,
okay.
you'd find accounts of different Subhaddas in Dictionary of Pali proper name again. So if you would like to know about any personality, place, anything, you can try to find out from this text, Dictionary of Pali proper name. So here is some information about this monk called Subhadda. So he says Subhadda had been a Samanera at the time of the Buddha's visit to Atuma and had 2 sons before he joined the order. When he heard that Buddha was coming, he sent for his 2 sons and gave orders for various foods to be collected to feed the Buddha and the 1250 monks. The Buddha arrived in the evening and took up his residence in Atuma. All night long, Subhadda went about giving instructions regarding the preparation of the food. In the morning of the next day, the Buddha went out for alms, and Subhadda approached him and invited him to partake of the food which he had prepared. But the Buddha questioned him and, discovering what he had done, refused to accept the meal, forbidding the monks to do so too. This angered Subhadda, and he awaited an opportunity of expressing his disapproval of the Buddha. This opportunity came when he heard of the Buddha's death. So this is an interesting account. So it seems like he was not happy with the Buddha. And of course, we can understand from his remark that he was a very ordinary monk, right? If he was really practicing the Dhamma, and if he has been established in certain stages of spiritual progress, spiritual life, I think he would not make such a remark. But anyway, his remark is the one that is mentioned in the description of this first council, that is presented as a cause for the cause leading to the holding of this council. And you all know the story of Devadatta. He not only tried to defame, but he wanted to kill Buddha because he wanted to become the leader of the Sangha. But the Buddha was not bothered by such instances so as to call for a Sangiti, right? Thus, it seems unconvincing that the Sangiti took place only due to Subhadda's statement. So, not just because of this ill utterance, but I think Mahakassapa and some of the senior monks, they have been thinking that since the Buddha is no more, we need to decide on the teaching and disciplinary rules, as it is mentioned that, before Adhamma and Avinaya becomes strong, before Adhammavadi and Avinayavadi becomes strong. So they wanted to come together and decide on the teaching. Sunakatta was a Lichavi prince of Vesali. Now, when he joined the order, he was one of the attendants of the Buddha. So there were several attendants of the Buddha. Ananda has been attending the Buddha only in the last 25 years, right? But before that, in the first 20 years, Buddha had different attendants. Sunakatta was one of them for a short period of time. But from the description, we come to know that he was also very much ordinary monk, a Puthujjana monk. So he, did not really understand the teaching of the Buddha. So he left the Buddhist order and then he joined other school. He says he was converted to the views of Kora Katya, okay, and then went about defaming the Buddha. Somebody wants to say something, I think.
Yes, teacher, I wanted to see if you know what are these views of Katya?
Oh, I
do we know?
have any clear idea about his views, but it seems that he was one of the ascetics who have been probably following this, how do you say, extreme ascetic practices. His practice is connected to some explanations. I found that this particular practice mentioned earlier, dog duty practice, so that was a certain kind of ascetic practice probably for them. But I'm not very much sure about his views, Korakatya. I'll try to find more information.
Okay. But it is quite surprising because earlier we were talking about someone who was complaining about the Buddha because he was very strict. No, like when the Buddha died, this person was practically very joyful. But then on the other hand, we find many people, most of the people actually, the majority were criticizing the Buddha for being too lenient. And actually, just yesterday I had this conversation with one Jain person, and they seem to think that the Buddha left the Jain master. What's his name? Yeah, he left him because it was so difficult, he said. So the Buddha left that Jain master in order to, because it was difficult for him to deal with the tapasya.
Yeah, all kinds of things can happen actually. For example, in the case of Subhadra, probably, yeah, as we just discussed, it could be because of his personal enmity, or it could be that he was not very much familiar with Jaina practice, so Buddhist practice was too difficult for him. Right? If someone is coming from Jaina school, probably Buddhist practices would be easier for them, because in Jaina practices they have been having a very strict practices. So
Yeah.
there could be all kinds of people coming from different backgrounds. In the case of Sunakata, actually, when he was defaming the Buddha, you can find the entire episode in this sutta, Patika Sutta of the Nikaya. He was defaming the Buddha, saying that, when you talk about psychic power and so on, he says that I do not see Buddha having any psychic power. I did not see. So he was not convinced that Buddha had any attainment, because he did not see Buddha performing any extraordinary skills. That is one thing. The other is, for him, he understood that whatever the Buddha was saying in the discussion is a very general thing, so he's not very much convinced by the teaching. So
maybe this happened before the Buddha performed that twin miracle in front of the Lichavi princes. He left him before he displayed his psychic powers.
yeah. So, but in certain occasion he was actually praising the Buddha also, and the Buddha said that Buddha is of course unmoved by either praise or blame. So he taking this as an occasion, the Buddha was saying that these ordinary common people, when they try to praise somebody, they actually defame him. When they are defaming, they're actually praising. So he took it that way. For example, when he was saying that Buddha does not, he did not say Buddha psychic power. That is in a way a praise for the Buddha, that because he himself, if it is not really required, he does not perform the psychic power. And he asked his disciples not to perform any kind of psychic powers, right? That is not the purpose of the holy life, brahmacharya life. So anyway, so he has been doing this, and then Buddha and his disciples did not take this as an occasion to get together and decide on the teaching of the Buddha.
Yeah, this is discussed in Mahasihanada Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya.
Yeah, in the Mahasihananda Sutta also you can find an account of this.
Sunakata activity.
There is, yeah, I think B wants to say something.
Yes, teacher.
Yeah.
On the previous slide where you said that that person made preparations all night and then the Buddha refused to take alms. So why did the Buddha not take food from them?
I think, yeah, the reasoning was not very clear. It seems like because he was a Samanera, and I think his eagerness to gave food to the Buddha is actually justified when the Buddha went to his area, his village. But probably he has been spending whole night giving instructions to his sons to prepare food and so on. And it could be that he did not really invite the Buddha, or he did not inform the Buddha previously. Just only in the morning when the Buddha went for alms round, he wanted to stop the Buddha and requested the Buddha to go to his house and take food, and the Buddha refused it. So it seems that as a samanera, as a follower of the Buddha, he should not do that. He should be focusing on his practice. There could be some procedure that he has to follow before he invites the Buddha or the monks. In my understanding, that could be probably the reason.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I think I have sent you several other suttas. For example, Samagama Sutta, Pasadika Sutta. I did not really send you this Sangiti Sutta. You can find it in the Digha Nikaya. Now, these suttas are important because they address a certain points, especially with regard to Nigantas passing away and the conflict that took place among the disciples of Nigantanatha Buddha. So Nigantanatha Buddha was one of the influential teacher in Jaina school, right? Then when this Nigantanatha Buddha passed away, many people came to know about it. So there were a certain Buddha's disciples of the Buddha that have been living close by. They came to know about it, and one of them quickly went to meet Ananda and informed it that Nigantanatha Buddha passed away, and there are now disputes among his disciples with regard to the practices, teachings, and so on, not just within the monastic members, even within the lay followers as well. So this monk was really worried about the Buddha Sasana, what would happen after the Buddha's passing away. So he went to meet Ananda, and he requested Ananda to inform this to the Buddha. So you would find the entire account of Niganta's death and the monk becoming worried about Buddha Sasana and so on in these suttas. And then when this was reported to the Buddha at the beginning says that there is nothing to worry. He was saying that if the teaching is well proclaimed, if the teacher is realized one, there should not be any problem among the followers, in his guidance and among the followers. So there is no need for worry. But then later on, he provided a kind of teaching to overcome such disputes, followed by a recitation of these 37 factors of enlightenment. And especially in the Sangiti Sutta, we find that it is Sariputta to whom Buddha, gave an advice or an order to discuss his teachings with the monks present in that particular occasion, and Sariputta, taking it as a good occasion, provided the teaching that represent actually listings of all kinds of teachings that the Buddha presented in different discourses. So these 37 factors of enlightenment and the listing that is provided in the Sangiti Sutta, you can also find in the Tasuttara Sutta, could be regarded as a kind of early discussion on deciding the teachings of the Buddha. Okay, but a particular kind of gathering or council was not held, but of course there were a group of monks. There are groups of monks who have been reciting, listening to this teaching and reciting it. Okay, that is why this sutta is called Sangita Sutta, for example, reciting together. The discourse on reciting together. So they have been reciting on this list of teachings. Okay, so we can understand that in the time of the Buddha, there were smaller meetings probably with regard to the teachings of the Buddha. And there were worries among some of the disciples, on the specific teaching of the Buddha, especially about the sasana, what would happen after the Buddha's passing away. Yeah, so some notes on the Sangha as repository of merits. 2 points are mentioned here. One is that in the case of renunciation, where the recipient of merit is oneself, the better a renouncer one is, the higher the quality of the merit that one generates for oneself. Now, you can find all kinds of explanations of the practice of Dhamma in different suttas and different texts. Especially, I would mention about Visuddhimagga, for example, when there is a discussion of different types of sila. You'd see there is a discussion that says that this morality could be practiced by people on different ground, different level, and based on that, it would be considered as hina, majjhima, and panita. It could be considered as lower, medium, or higher. So if someone is practicing sila or virtue, or any kind of good practices or some practices, but with the idea of showing it to others. Okay, so he's basically proud of his own practice. Okay, then it is considered to be a hina. He's still practicing, but it is a hina practice. Okay, but if someone is practicing these wholesome activities with the purpose of having a higher life, where still in the samsara, but being born in higher realms, for example, that is considered as medium practice. And the higher one is that where one is fully devoted to the practice, the purpose is only to be liberated from samsara. Okay, so now here what you can see is that when somebody renounces the home life and become the absolute follower of the Buddha and his teaching, it says he would acquire so much merit based on his own practices. So merits, acquiring merits, acquisition of merits plays a very important role. Now, it is not just in the case of those renouncing home life, but for everyone, because now we see that Sangha depends on laities, right? And why laities support the Sangha? Because they want to acquire merits. They want to have peaceful life. They want to have good guidance. They also want to acquire merits, right? And this is something that we need to consider here. Now look at this passage here. Buddhism was as successful as it was in India, largely due to the commercial class who became members of the Sangha and endowed it with parks, monasteries, and other gifts. Thus, mercantile references and concepts did enter the Pali Canon. The quality of one's personal merit accelerates exponentially. For this reason, absent the Buddha, the true Sangha is the greatest source of merit, the actual repository of Dharma. So, when we talk about preservation of the teaching, holding of the council, Sangha, of course, played a very, very important role. First, by putting the teaching into practice. Secondly, by sharing their own experience and the teaching with others, convincing, convincing and converting a lot of other people into the sasana. So let us discuss a little bit about the punishment to Ananda. So as we all know, Ananda played a very, very important role in the first council. But you would find in the discussion of the first council that he was also given a certain type of punishment for different reasons. First one is, for example, failing to ask from the Buddha about the minor rules. Secondly, stepping on the Buddha's cloth while sewing it. Thirdly, allowing women to pay the last homage to the Buddha when the Buddha passed away. And fourth is not asking the Buddha to live a full lifespan. Fifth is arguing with Buddha to allow women in the order. Now, what these show is that, of course, when Ananda was, accused of all these incidents and then given punishment, punishment means basically he was blamed for this, and he was asked to, have forgiveness from the Sangha. He agreed to that, but he does not really consider all this, any of this to be faulty, so yeah, so he says, I honored sir out of my unmindfulness, did not ask the Lord, saying, this is with regard to first one, about the minor rules of training. I do not see that as an offense of wrongdoing, yet even out of faith in the venerable ones, I confess that as an offense of wrongdoing. So this is his this was his response in every case, but I think this shows some other things, that is, in the time of the Buddha, especially when he was allowing women into the Sangha and arguing with the Buddha, and also allowing women to pay last homage to the Buddha. I think it shows that he was quite, in fact, supportive of this women folk, because, and this also shows the society of the time, that they were probably not getting similar kind of opportunities in other schools and so on. And in the case of stepping on the Buddha's cloth, for example, he says that I did not do it intentionally. So when he was sewing a cloth, sometimes you step on that. So it was not intentional. Not asking the Buddha to live a full lifespan. There was this occasion that says that when somebody really make a request to the Buddha, he could live few more years more, but it did not happen. Now, of course, there are differences of opinions with regard to that. And one explanation could be that when we refer to his sickness, it says he was making effort to overcome this sickness because he wanted to complete his next vassa, and then he wanted to give this Sangha further teachings and so on. So willpower to live and to do something also, I think, matters, especially in the case of these enlightened beings. Okay, so but without, and this also could be the tradition that for everything, you need to make a request, and it was not made. So Buddha decided to pass away when he is 80 years of age. Concluding remarks, there were different groups of monks who did not attend the council. I missed this one. Okay, Purana's case and some considerations. Purana was from another council was completed. When the meeting was completed, and he was accompanied by 500 monks. Seems like they were his followers, his disciples. And when Mahakassapa met Purana in Rajagaha, he told Purana that, we have been reciting this Dhamma and Vinaya, Vanaba Purana, do you agree to that? And Purana's reply was that he agreed to what was recited in the council, but he wanted to follow the teachings and disciplinary rules that he had directly heard from the Buddha. Okay, so what it suggests is that, there could be some other teachings that probably were not recited in the council, but it could also mean that these teachings should not be very much different. Probably they are just different presentation of the same teachings, and that is what we find in the entire Tipitaka canonical text. Okay. So there were different groups of monks who did not attend the council and who were practicing according to what they had heard from the Buddha directly. This, of course, brings about a possibility of text other than what was recited at the council coming down in a different lineage. Purana's agreement to all what is recited at the council suggests that the recitation was complete in itself, which means those teachings heard by monks who did not participate in the council could not be much different. So this much is about the first council. Any question? And if you look at this second council, of course, you have this discussion of 10 points, and that this Vajjiputiya monks have been following. Yasa did not agree to that. Therefore, they had this meeting. So what you can find in the description of this second council is basically these 10 points. Okay, they are not to be found in the disciplinary rules. They are against the disciplinary rules that are discussed in the first council. Storing salt in a horn, eating after midday, eating once and then going again to a village for alms, holding the Uposatha ceremony with monks dwelling in the same locality, carrying out official acts when the assembly was incomplete, following a certain practice because it was done by one's tutor or teacher, eating sour milk after one had his midday meal, consuming a strong drink before it had been fermented, using a rug which was not the proper size, and using gold and silver. So these were 10 practices that these Vajjiputaka bhikkhus have been carrying out. Yasa comes to visit Vesali. Yasa is a very, very senior monk, comes to visit this place, and he finds out that these are wrong practices. So he asked the monks to stop, practicing these rules, but they do not agree to Yasa. Then Yasa goes to laities, the lay devotees who have been supporting the monks, explaining that these monks are not practicing the disciplinary rules properly, and these Vajjiputaka monks come to know about it, and then they do not like Yasa's actions, so they want to asked him to leave the place, but Yasa was not happy with the practice of this monk, so he wanted to inform it to other senior monks. So he went to different places to meet other senior monks, learned monks, to seek for their opinions with regard to these practices. And then later on, there was a decision of holding a council, a meeting, and then 8 monks were selected 4 from Eastern Sangha, 4 Theras from Pattaya. So this Eastern Sangha represent the place where this Vajrapatika monks have been practicing. The Sangha from Pattaya represent the other senior group of monks, but it turned out that all these monks from both the group agree that these 10 practices are wrong. So basically what you find in the discussion of second council is there is a long discussion of how Yasa and also these Vajrapatika monks moving from place to meet different elder theras until they meet Sabbakami. Sabbakami seems to be the most senior of the time. Okay. And before that, Revata. Even Yasa himself is very, very senior. He was about 120 years old. And you would also find that when Yasa was approaching these monks, he has been explaining the whole situation. But then this Vajrapatika bhikkhus also, trying to approach these senior monks with lots of gifts and so many things, so that they can offer these things to these theras and make them happy. But these theras did not really accept their gifts. Okay, so when the decision was made that these do not come under the disciplinary rules given by the Buddha, after that they have decided the Dhamma and Vinaya again. But this group of monks in Vesali, they did not agree to this decision. Okay, so there was this schism. Okay, Mahasangika and Staviravada. So those who upheld the teaching of Theras, they are called Staviravada, and those people who disagreed, it says that they were, bigger in number, big number of people. So that is why they are called Mahasangika. Okay, so that was the discussion of second council. It seems that by the time second council occurred, there is already a clear-cut, schism, or that took place between these two fractions, especially Staviravada and Mahasangika, which later on, contributed to the origin of so many different schools by the time of King Asoka. We'll be discussing that later on. Yes. So that is all about these two councils.
Excuse me, teacher. Hello. Hello.
Yes. When I'm speaking.
Yeah. What is the full form of DPV records, teacher? DPV.
What is that?
I think Deepa Vamsa.
Deepavamsa.
DIP means Deepavamsa.
Okay.
Reverend sir,
Mahavamsa.
Reverend sir,
Yes.
so what do you think about in the second assembly, Sabbakami was the president.
Yeah.
Why not the other? Because the only one who had seen the Buddha. Mother.
some of these monks, the senior monks, including Yasa. Yasa is the one who
Yeah, Yasa was the
organized
oldest one who
council.
saw the Buddha himself. Yeah.
Yasa was not the oldest one. I think, the other monks were also equally senior and older. Yasa is particularly mentioned to have seen the Buddha, okay, and he was a disciple of Ananda. And even the Sabbakami and Revata, they were quite senior. It seems that even they also, have seen the Buddha, so they have been they were regarded as learned monks and senior monks, right? That is why you see Yasa went to meet them, right?
Yeah.
Yasa first went to meet, of course, there are so many monks he met.
So that means ordinarily Sabbakami is elder.
Sabbakami is a
Ordinarily.
senior monk and also learned monk, and he has been carrying out the practice seriously. That was one of the reasons why he was made president. So when Yasa went to meet Revata, Revata was also very, very senior monk. Revata suggested that let us go and meet Venerable Sabbakami, discuss with him first. So that is how finally they moved to Sabbakami.
The other reason, if the Yasa was the president, that would be a problem because he was stood against the Vesalis Teras. So
Yeah, you can think in that direction as well. But anyway, they did not agree to that. You see, so if Yasa was made president, I'm not sure what would happen. But even when Sabbakami was president or all the senior monks are present, this group of monks, they did not agree to their decision. So basically, when you talk about a split of Sangha, it is based on either disciplinary rules or based on different understanding and interpretation of teachings. Okay, so in the case of this, it is basically this disciplinary rules, right? And in the time of Third Council, we find that many schools came into exist for both reasons, for different practices of disciplinary rules and also different understanding of doctrinal teaching. Is there anyone who is writing on these councils? No one. It could be any one or two or three. Any other question from the class here? Honorable Surya Lanka. What about Ratanjyoti? Honorable Anop?
Teacher,
Yes.
in the beginning of class, I think I was a few minutes late. So you said something about the assignment. So what is the relation between the first assignment and first paper and second paper?
Basically, you have to write two essays, dear Miss students. One is a shorter essay, the other is a bit longer. So, you can write these two essays on two different topics or related topics, no problem. But
Okay.
I'm just expecting the essay to be submitted on 21st September. That is the last day for the first one, right? So we are probably not going to have a class with the MA students. But anyway, the BA students have to join the class because we will be having a midterm test, right? So
Okay.
I'll send to you an email, discussing and clarifying the matters with regard to the midterm test later on.
Okay. And this everyone has to do individually this assignment. I mean, can people do together?
That is advisable. Everyone should write independent essay.
Excuse me, teacher. Longer essay is 1500 words. That is approximately 3-page MS Word. And what about smaller essay? 1 page?
No, I think smaller essay is 1500 words.
Yeah, I am confused about
1500 words. I was
for the small one.
Okay, smaller essay 1500 words, bigger essay 15,000. 15,000 words.
50,000 too much.
I'm really confused.
50,000 too much.
Evan sir, how
Kindly,
many words are the big
write down on the
assignment?
I made it very clear in my last email. Look at the last email, or I can write another
Okay, teacher. Thank you.
clarifying these matters.
Sanam, 2,500, I think. Teacher, correct? 2,500 for longer and 1,500 for shorter.
That's right.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you very much.
Sonam, if you have to do 15,000, we cannot do anything else. Only that we will do
Sonam,
for 4 months.
Sonam, if you like to do, you can do it. Like a thesis.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And for the longer one, later on, you will have to make a presentation based on that. Is it clear?
Yes, Pante.
Okay, very good.
So
Anything
for
you can say
bachelors,
about the sorry, go ahead.
for bachelor student, when do we have to submit? Is there a time do we have to submit our essay?
The essay could be submitted before the semester ends.
So in November or December?
November, yeah, probably in the first week of November.
And do we have to also do the how to say the presentation, or it's just a
There will be presentation. I will think about it. Probably in our last class or in last 2 classes, all of you will be having the time for presentation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, teacher, I have 1 or 2 questions. One is for the writing. Is there anything, I mean, other than 1,500 words, is there anything you want us to follow or just write?
As long as the topic is related to the course, it should be okay. And if you are willing to follow a proper format, proper writing style, in IBC, normally I think, what is it called? MLS style is followed. In the website, probably you will have some instruction on that. You can try to follow that. Other than that,
we are allowed to follow the Chicago style also.
Sorry?
We are allowed to follow the Chicago style also.
Yeah, if it is mentioned there, you can, follow it as well.
Sir, I have a questions for the
okay. So
regarding the second
sorry.
Sangha.
Yeah.
Sir, you said that the reason was the Dasavattu mainly, and I heard somewhere the reasons also the small Siksapada.
Sorry?
Siksapada, small Siksapada, Sikkapada.
No, I did not understand.
Kuddaka Sikka, I mean Kuddaka Sikka.
It's not clear to me. You can write it down if because the sound is not very clear.
Teacher, I did not get clearly. What did you say about presentation for MA student?
Presentation, you can make your presentation by the end of the semester, probably in the last class or in last 2 classes. And the presentation could be based on your final essay, the longer one. So once you work on your essay, later on, I think you can make a presentation as well based on that, topic of your discussion. That is the idea.
But is PPT presentation required, or is it okay if can we just present by talking?
Yeah,
No problem.
it is up to you. You can
Okay.
decide on that, the way
Okay.
you feel suitable and easier for you. Yeah, but the speaker has to come online and on the video as well. Turn on the video so that everyone can see who is presenting.
Okay. But it's not like if you do PPT, then it is necessarily better or something. If we feel that it's okay
true.
to just
That's
talk.
right. If you can make PPTs, I think better for everyone to follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Reverend sir, I was talking about the Mahasangika. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mahasangika is a big assembly. So they are also called Acharyavadin, followers of the traditional teachings. So they did not accept the further rules. But the Stavira, the eldest monk, they followed the further rules. For example, Mahasangika hold 67 Sekya, and Stavira, they accept 75. So one of the reasons for the second assembly, the small Sikkapada, not only the Dasavattu.
Of course, it is connected to this changing of rules because these are some minor rules.
So
now, when you talk about Mahasangika and Acharyavada is the term that refers to actually all kinds of schools, because when you talk about a particular school, that is connected to a certain teachers promoting that school. Yeah, right. So because they are having differences of opinions with regard to disciplinary rules or doctrinal teaching, and others follow that, and that is how you have these schools. And as long when you look at these principles, yeah, you can bring up the discussion of changing of minor rules,
yes,
right?
minor.
Or adjusting the minor rules. True. Okay, I think that's all for today. Thank you everyone for joining. See you next week.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you
teacher.
so very much, teacher.